As you watch the screen, your heart begins to beat faster. There's a fluttering in the pit of your stomach. Your throat is dry. Your palms damp. Suddenly a chill runs down your spine. You clutch the person next to you. You tell yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. But sooner or later, it's time to go home.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Ron.
I'm Lindsay.
I'm Jay.
And we are happy to welcome to the show one half of the Chainsaws and Claws podcast network, Patrick Vicious himself. Patrick, please introduce yourself and tell the folks about your show.
The primary show, Patrick Vicious, as you just said. But the primary show is Chainsaws and Claws, which is me and my friend Rob. We discovered a long time ago that basically our tastes especially in horror, are very similar. And we both love slasher movies and monster movies most of all. So we started something where basically we could just kind of combine those. And so every episode we pick a slasher movie and a monster movie. Granted, in many cases, we are stretching the limits of what could be called either of those things. And I freely admit that. It's just a matter of, at a certain point, it becomes creativity.
It's all right. Sometimes we stretch the limits of what can be called a movie. So
that's what Brian says. Everything we watch, right?
And then there's also because there's the network. So basically, we also, not all the time, but when we're so inclined to do movies are still good, where basically we just do any genre, not just horror. And if we're doing horror, it doesn't have to fall into those genre, those subgenres of slashers and monsters. And then Rob mostly is in charge of his Wrath of Stath podcast that he started forever ago. That's part of our network, where it's about the various works of Jason Statham. I've appeared on some of them, but yeah, that's mostly Rob's thing. And occasionally he'll text me and be like, "Hey, do you want to do this one?" I'm like, "I don't think that's a good idea," and then we move on.
It's funny, I was supposed to have been a guest on that a long time ago. Then the show went into hiatus, and I also kind of forgot.
Yes.
Until literally just now when you brought up Wrath of Stath, and I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do which one was I supposed to do? The one where Jason Statham's on a subway with a little girl.
Safe?
Yes, I think I was supposed to do Safe.
Okay.
But also I can't remember. It could have been the one where Jason Statham does a bad Southern accent.
That one I want to see. I didn't know that existed.
I didn't know that existed either.
Do say?
We'll add it to the list.
Yes, the ever-growing film strip list.
November, December. We're coming for you.
Hey, yeah, it's
Stathmember.
Might as well.
Stathember. Stathtoberfest.
He needs to do some holiday trash so that we can include him in that, because we're coming around the corner. But oh well.
Yeah, he needs to play some sort of ass-kicking
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus,
yes. Yeah. Needs to be like an ex-CIA agent who retires and decides to become a mall Santa so he can be close to his estranged daughter who works at the Gap or some shit. And then all hell breaks. Die Hard at Christmas in a mall. There we go.
I would see that film.
Yeah, I would watch
it. If Golan and Globus were still alive, the checks would be getting cut and we would be writing right now.
If Golan and Globus were still alive, that would be like the Chuck Norris Invasion USA 2.
Yes.
Except this time Jason Statham has to do a bad German accent or something.
Right. So I still will stump for Invasion USA. It's a good movie. But anyway.
Everybody likes Invasion USA, Jay.
To be fair, I don't really because Rob also loves Invasion USA. I believe that's the one he really. But my whole thing is my dad loves Chuck Norris and I don't. So I don't really have the whole thing of any. I don't know. Is it like Steven Seagal where all of them kind of bleed together, and I don't really know which ones are which. But
yeah, some of them. That one's kind of distinct because the bad guy in it is so notable for, and the plot is so oh wow, that would never actually work. But okay,
yeah.
But it's funny, So.
But we're
in the archives.
Yes, in the archives. Check it out. We are not here, though, to talk about Chuck Norris or Jason Statham. We are here to talk about The Purge election year, starring Frank Grillo, Elizabeth Mitchell, Michael T. Williamson, Joseph Julia Soria, Betty Gabriel, Terry Serpico, Edwin Hodge, Raymond J. Barry, and Kyle Secor. Written and directed by James DeMonico. Released in 2016 on a $10 million budget, it grossed $118.6 million at the box office, which makes it the second highest grossing in the franchise. The first Purge holds that spot. Now, Jay, I don't think these numbers were adjusted for inflation, but fair enough. We've talked about covering any part of the Purge franchise for a long time here, and decided that since it's an actual election year, why not do this one now? So, Patrick, do you have any, you've talked a little bit possibly about your background with the Purge. I don't remember if we were recording or not, but
We're not.
do you have any background with this one?
Well, the thing was, like, I was just saying, like, off mic, where I was just like, when the first one was coming out, I had zero interest in it because I was just like, yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Ethan Hawke do a remake of Assault on Precinct 13. I don't necessarily know that I need to see that again. And then when the second one was coming out, I was just like, yeah, I still don't really care that much. And then I had friends who were like, it's basically has the Punisher in it. I was like, okay, cool. So I watched it and I was like, I don't feel like we landed the same place because that is not how I see this Punisher. But I was just like, it's fine, but it wasn't enough that I was just like, I need to watch more. And then it wasn't until I think it was actually like last year that I finally ended up watching the first one out of like sheer morbid curiosity. And I was like, oh, this is actually awesome. So then I watched like Anarchy again. I'm like, yes, I don't care about this. And then like I got into like election year. I was like, oh, this is better. And then it's like I feel like they got better as they went on. With the exception of I still like the first one a lot. But yeah, no, this one I actually think of the two so far with Frank Grillo is the much more I feel like it's the best use of him and that character. Also because I guess the rest of the characters are also more interesting to me. But yeah, I had no particular history other than disdain until like a year ago.
Speaking of disdain, Lindsey, did you make Brian watch this one?
No, I actually asked if he wanted to, it being semi-topical since it's an election year, and he respectfully declined. So I watched it by myself, which is fine. He's not a big horror movie fan. So I wasn't expecting him to jump on board with it. But this was I think this is the first time I've seen it. I'll say this is the first time I was able to really savor it. I cannot remember, and Ron, you can keep me honest here. This may have been, I think we had a Purge on at least one of the scary movie tournament brackets that we did. But I don't think this was on it. Either way, if it was, I pushed it out of my brain and I felt like I was watching it for the first time. So I really got to sit down and pay attention.
Jay, what about you?
Oh, I've seen all of these in theaters. My wife and I went and saw the original Purge because I showed her the trailer of it, and she was like, "Oh, I'm down. This sounds cool." And so we went and watched it. And we like Blumhouse and all of that stuff, and so like Ethan Hawke, and we really enjoyed that one. And then had to go back and see the next one. We saw this one, and I didn't realize until not that long ago she had bought all of them because she has the Amazon Prime account. So I was going to look for these things, and I just did the search on the Roku, and it's like, you own this. And I was like, I didn't know that. But she also was the person who had watched the Purge show before I did. Ron, you talked about it all the time, and she was like, "You need to just sit down and watch it." So I think I binged it when it like all landed on Hulu or whatever, and I really liked it. So I like the Purge movies. I've always enjoyed them. I approach them all as I feel like they're all doing something a little different. Like that first one is very much a home invasion gone awry, movie. And I'm not even talking about the message, the message of each movie, but there's that one. And then the second one is all hell breaking loose with multiple people. And, you had Saracen from Friday Night Lights in there, and Kylie Sanchez from, the awful vacation movie she was in, and that shitty Glade show she was on and all that stuff. So I was like, I'm down. And then all these other people, and, Frank Grillo showed up and started whacking people for vigilante type reasons or something. And then not JT Walsh mixed with Clint Eastwood chases him in that movie, and so I always remember that. And so I don't know the guy's name is, but I'm just going like it's very much The Vanishing. It's like The Happening Again, or no, that's not the one JT Walsh is in. The Breakdown, the
Yes.
Kurt Russell. Yeah, love that movie by the way. But strong recommend on that. But yeah, so I like that one, and then we went and saw this one, and we're like, okay, yeah, we're getting a little deeper in this. And then again, saw the first Purge and even saw the Forever Purge, which I thought was kind of stupid, but was still fun.
I like the Forever Purge, but
it's fun. No, it's fun. But I was like, this is just kind of dumb, but it's sort of fun. So I mean, it's some ass kicking, all over Mexico, as it were. But that's fine. So I mean, I had a good time with it. So I like Purge movies is the bottom line. But I don't visit them that often. And I was really pissed off that the TV show ended when it did because I thought, well, it just got good. And so as often happens with TV these days. But that was my background with The Purge. And I remember seeing this one in theaters, but I hadn't watched it again until we got ready to do it for this review.
I believe, and I am a completely unreliable narrator when it comes to my own history, but I believe I actually reviewed this one for Den of Geek when it came out in 2016. And as Jay mentioned, I did both seasons of the Purge TV show, which I thought was excellent. And both were wildly different. One was just, the first season was just during the Purge night with like 6 or 7 different stories happening during the Purge night. And the other was the year between the Purge and like the aftermath of what happened to specific characters in the Purge that you get in the first episode and the preparations they're making for the second Purge and all that stuff. I thought it was a really cool idea, and I thought it was a very clever, very well done show. Very interesting. I thought because TV gives you a lot more time. Hamstrung, of course, by the fact that it was on USA, so you couldn't get too much splatter, but they still managed to push some surprising boundaries for TV.
I always wondered if that show had wound up on something like FX. No, I'm not talking about like HBO or Showtime, but if it was on like FX, because like you go back and like watch The Shield, that show is fucked up. Like the violence that was going on in that, and like Sons of Anarchy. I had this boss who was in her late 50s who watched all those violent FX shows. So she and I used to sit around and talk about Sons of Anarchy, which was like talking about it with your grandmother. But she loved Purge movies too, for that same reason. And we talked about like, man, I wish the Purge show was like on something like FX because it would have been even more boss than it was. But I'm with you, Ron. That second season of that TV show was brilliant. I'm like, this is a great idea. And then they just canned it.
Speaking of great ideas, I think it's time for me to do the plot summary, which probably belongs in a can and to be flushed down the can. But I'll give it a shot. This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual Purge, sanctioned by the U.S. government. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Weapons of class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the Purge. All other weapons, except for Frank Grillo, are restricted. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Thankfully, Frank Grillo just barely scrapes by as a Class 4 weapon, which might be the only reason Senator Charlie Roan survives the wrath of the new Founding Fathers. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 20 years ago, Charlie watched helplessly as her family was slaughtered on Purge Night. Like so many other families that get slaughtered on Purge Night. It's kind of their thing. Now, like so many others, she's turned against the Purge and what people like Dante Bishop have called the most predatory form of capitalism. Charlie is a politician on the rise, and that's a threat to the new Founding Fathers. Thankfully, she's got Leo Barnes and his potentially cauliflowered ears on her side. While the senator wins hearts and minds at a debate, deli owner Joe, assistant Marcos, and Purge Night EMT and reformed badass Laney are watching while a couple of teens get into the store and start shoplifting. Joe steps in, they bust his balls savagely. Not literally, just in the cutting way teenagers have of speaking to people who are older and better than them. Then Laney steps in and scares the girls away. But this is a Purge movie, so you know they'll be back in some kind of crazy-ass mask, especially once Joe loses his Purge insurance, which, having fought with my insurance company for about 6 months over the replacement of my roof, I now understand the urge to purge. But beside that, a siren scream and Joe and Marcos defend the store from the girls and their friends. Laney drives around giving people medical services, and Charlie decides to hunker down in her Washington townhouse rather than go somewhere safe for the purge.
That's not even safe when it's not Purge night, by the way. But anyway,
I don't know. She lives in the rich part of Washington. They probably still have cops.
there is no rich part of
She's
Washington.
definitely in Northwest. No, Northwest is a nice part.
Okay. Oh yeah, you used to live by.
Georgetown.
That's
Yeah.
right. So yeah.
She looks like she's in Georgetown to me.
Yeah, it could be.
Well,
Georgia. There were
she's just
there
got
were
to
no
dodge the
exorcist
Exorcist.
steps. There were no exorcist steps. I was waiting for it. I was looking for it.
I know,
But there
they're-
were some exorcist adjacent steps that they have to run down, remember?
Yes.
Right,
Well,
right.
that's what made me think like, oh, they're going to show the exorcist steps.
No
Anyway,
Pazuzus were harmed in the making of the Purge.
yeah. I
Oh,
derailed.
that's a
you
crossover I
all.
would like to see.
Purge Zuzu? Yeah, I'm on board with
Ooh, I'm down.
that. But there's a mole in her security team, and that allows a group of paramilitary Nazis to kill the security guards, break into Charlie's house, and force her and Leo onto the streets, which are swarming with purgers, both homegrown and murder tourists alike, which is an interesting idea, the murder tourism thing. The two are captured by a gang of Russian communists, only for Joe and Marcos to gun down the Ruskies and save the senator. They all run for shelter in Joe's store, only for the teenagers to return with a bunch of weird friends like a furry and some other people who start sawing open the metal gates to try to get into Joe's store.
Got questions about that fucking furry.
Yeah, I feel like you need to you really need to paint the picture of how they arrive in the car that is covered in Christmas lights, and they're listening to "Party in the USA" by Miley fucking Cyrus.
No,
I
It is
love
the most
that
whimsical, like
it's
Which is
done. Yeah, we'll get there.
Hey,
but
there's
yeah.
no party like a purge party because a purge party doesn't stop even after people start dying.
It's true.
But anyway, as the girls are trying to break into the store, Lainey shows up and runs them over with her cool twisted metal ambulance,
Yes, Twisted Metal, hell yes.
and then promises to take the group to a safe zone. Until, of course, they get attacked by a random white supremacist helicopter,
You hate that?
which like the Illinois Nazis have been one-upped. The group hides under an overpass and remove the tracker bullet stuck in Leo's shoulder. I forgot to mention he got shot earlier. But they're surrounded by a group of what are probably Crips.
Yeah, that's a
They're
crip
pretty-
whistle.
Yeah, they're pretty scary to be sure, but Joe knows the Crip whistle and he's an OG. And it turns out they just wanted some medical attention for their friend, and in exchange, they plant the bullet elsewhere and set a trap for the pursuing Nazi guerrillas, which they murder off screen, but still in very satisfying fashion. Charlie and the gang arrive at Bishop's anti-purge hidey hole, where Charlie discovers that Bishop is going to assassinate the NFFA presidential candidate Owens at their annual purge mass. Before they can run off to catch Bishop, the government arrives at the hideout looking to stop Bishop. Leo and Charlie escape out the back and meet up again with Lainey, Joe, and Marcos. They take off in the ambulance only to be hit by the Nazis and their leader Danziger, who kidnaps Charlie after flipping over the ambulance. Charlie is taken to the Purge Night Mass, where she's slated to be the sacrificial totem offered up to the NFFA leaders. Before they can do their thing, Bishop and the cavalry arrive, and a shootout breaks out, killing a whole lot of NFFA people except for Owens and his creepy pasty sidekick, who does have a name, but he kind of looks like what would happen if Macaulay Culkin grow up to be like a
Really
even
tall.
more of an inhuman monster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Owens is caught, and Charlie talks Bishop out of killing him, knowing that if he got hurt, he'd just be a martyr for his cause and sway popular opinion. More goons arrive, killing Bishop and his men and a whole bunch of innocent people. Meanwhile, out in the parking lot, Danziger and Barnes run out of bullets after shooting like 50 times at each other and decide, you know what? It's knife fighting season. Which really makes no sense because if you look at Frank Grillo's ears, I can't tell if they're like super cauliflowered or not, but they're close enough to know that he's not the kind of dude you want to get into a close range knife fight with.
Yeah.
Barnes kills Danziger after a pretty cool knife fight, and Charlie and the gang free the NFFA hostages before creepy Culkin shows up from the shadows and shoots Joe. Then gets shot by Joe as they both get that kind of slow motion gun firing John Woo death. 2 months later, Marcos and Lainey are restoring Joe's Deli while they watch the TV news announcing President Charlie Roan's landslide victory and the end of the purge. Of course, the NFFA loyalists take to the streets in violent uprisings, but other than that, things seem to be improving slightly as credits roll.
Very good. Very well done. Great way to lead us through all the things. There's a lot going on in this movie. It's not a very long movie and one that doesn't waste time getting anywhere. Like, I wanted to ask y'all if you had never seen any of the other purges or had never, knew somebody had never seen any of them, could you jump in this movie and like get it because I feel like they do a decent job explaining the setup to you. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of shit going on that's like, who's that? Like, what's
I'm
that?
I
Mark,
mean, yeah, I
how-
guess the only character that comes back is Grillo, and I guess if you don't know the Grillo,
Well,
like,
Bishop's in the
well,
first
yeah,
movie.
okay, I guess that's true.
So yeah.
But like, I mean, I guess it's minimal, so I guess you probably are fine.
No, I marked it specifically how efficient the lead up in this movie is. They give you exactly 17 minutes to give you all of the backstory and everything you need to know to enjoy all of the killings in the last hour and 30 minutes remaining of the movie.
So I have a phrase for that, Lindsay. I'm so glad you time marked it because I made a note in my notes about it too. Is that they Friday the 13th, the final chapter. This,
Yeah.
So if you never saw it, like I tell people all the time, if you've never seen a Friday the 13th movie, just watch the fourth one. It's called the final chapter. Obviously, it's not, but just watch that, and you pretty well got it. Like you get everything you want out of a Friday the 13th.
Mhm.
And I feel like this Purge movie does the same thing. We're like, okay, let's just get everybody back on board. We're just gonna have a little fun. And then, man, when they hit the gas, it does not stop. Like
It's true, though. 17 minutes in, I knew who I wanted to see die. I knew exactly what the backstory was. Like I was set up. I was set up and ready to roll.
Exactly.
Well, see, but by this time there had already been a purge in real life, so like people should have known what was going on. I mean, I survived a purge right here in
That's
Louisville.
true. Yeah, you saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun too. It was crazy. In case you don't know, Pat, we had in 2014 a bunch of posters went up all over town saying that I forget what day it was, but some Friday was going to be the Louisville Purge, and everybody was going to go out and purge, and like people literally like holed up in their homes, and like there was a run on groceries. You couldn't rent the Purge anywhere; it was gone everywhere in town for
Of
obvious
course.
reasons.
That sounds like something Randy and Scream would do, but go ahead.
Yeah.
And everybody was listening to the police scanner on their phones and radios and whatnot, and there were some crazy things that happened. A lot of people were like driving down the street, like standing up in convertibles and like shooting guns in the air, and some convenience stores and stuff got robbed, which is a fairly normal Friday night, the convenience store thing. Anyway.
I was gonna say that doesn't sound any different, but okay.
But then somebody called into the police, and this was my favorite one. It's said that they were gonna that someone had broken into the zoo and had let all of the giraffes out.
The giraffening.
Yeah, it was a very specific, like, and they were gonna let the giraffes out.
I mean, I guess like if that was all that got let out, I feel like that's the best case scenario. Like in a purge scenario, I feel like you're gonna like let out like the more predatory animals and not the fucking giraffes.
If you really want to mess with people, you let the ostriches out because they are not fucking around. Like, they will come for you. So,
Or the chimps.
Well, funny enough that you mentioned that. Near where the zoo is, there is a guy who owns an alpaca farm, and randomly a few years ago, like 30 alpacas got killed.
Oh my God!
And here's the thing. He maintains that the snow leopards got out of the zoo and killed and ate his alpacas, and then went back to the zoo.
Wow.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. I remember when like this black mamba or whatever, it was a king cobra from the New York Zoo got out, and somebody created this back when Twitter was fun, created a Twitter account for it. And like, there's like, I'm hanging out here in Central Park. Fuck y'all. And like the cobra just went different places. And then when it finally got, caught and they brought it back, he's like, well, I've been rehomed. That's what they called it. Bullshit, and then the account died. But it was a good like 3 or 4 days of following that fake cobra account. So whoever did that was a great service you provided to the world back when Twitter was tolerable.
There was also a similar incident to the New York Cobra, where a trailer full of cows
loving this story already.
Wrecked on Interstate 64, which is a interstate that goes from very rural to very urban very quickly. And
I used to live right off Interstate 64.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
I do.
The part that is in here in Louisville runs by Cherokee Park, which is one of the large Olmsted parks we have. It's thousands of acres. Same dude that did the Central Park where the Cobra lived. But they were never, they captured all of the cows except for like 2 or 3. And there was literally a cow living in the park for like 3 months.
This cow just kind of hanging around.
That's so wholesome. That's a wholesome story.
It kind of is.
It's the park cow. So,
That cow is
Well,
just
it's better
living
than
its best life.
yeah.
Well, it's better than the usual, than the guy who hangs out there and is a flasher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so there you go.
I mean, granted, almost anything
Classic.
is better than that, but yes.
Yes, very true. I used to work for a big ag school, and so cows getting loose was just an everyday thing. But we did have alpacas on campus, and they were bred to like do different things with their fur, to try to figure out how to harvest them. And there was one that had this coif on his hair that every time my wife and I would walk by him, we would just call him Rick James because that's what he had going on up there. And he would look at you in the way that alpacas look at you, and just like, Rick James, and so he just doing the alpaca thing. But yeah, oh my!
I wish everyone could see your alpaca face.
My alpaca chew.
I'm sad
Yeah,
Really great
that we're the
alpacas.
only ones that get to see it.
it's a podcast is not a visual medium, but yeah, thank God for most of the time. But it is a visual medium though. Watching, well, this is. I just want to ask y'all this. When I don't know that they told us in Anarchy, maybe they did, and I just missed it, but the Frank Grillo character does not look like somebody named Leo. Like it just is not the right. Like that's not the name that I thought I was. Leo Barnes. Like that seems like a fake name.
The Leo is fine. The Barnes is what concerns me. Like he looks like a Leo. He doesn't look like a Barnes. Like,
Leo Tanucci, maybe. Or
yes,
something
Yeah,
like
he
that.
needs an Italian last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo is
Yeah.
short for like Leonardo.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, the Barnes, you're right. The Barnes part is like, it's a little too waspy.
I guess
Maybe
maybe
his
Barnes
mom
is
was Italian. And
yeah, I
his
was gonna
dad
say
was
Barnes
waspy.
Barnes is his dad, and his mom is like Sophia.
Beretta.
Beretta.
Yes.
No, Sophia Cobretti.
Yes,
Oh,
already.
yeah.
My sister's boy Marion is out in California. She joined the force like he did, Leo. There's my Saturday.
I mean,
Night
I feel like
Fever
at this
mom.
point he'd be his because this takes place in the future, and like Cobra is the 80s, so it'd probably be like the son of Cobra. Which, although to be fair, the thing with like Grillo is like, okay, I don't know this for sure, but like I am betting from what I've gleaned from listening to the movie Crypt with Joe Lynch, who worked with him, and the fact that his career hasn't really taken off, I don't think he's pleasant to work with. So like that's probably why you don't really get a lot these days past this. And it's like him coming back is a big deal because it's like, oh hey.
I remember when I talked Rachel into watching I guess it's Civil War or Winter Soldier, whichever one he shows up in, and the
both,
Captain
but
America. The Captain America movie though. But she's like, "Is that the guy from the Purge?" I was like, "Yeah, it's the same dude." I was like, "Then this is about to go bad." Like you saw him coming, you're like, "Well, that's a bad." If you know nothing about comic books, you're like, "Yeah, that's a bad guy." So they'll hide her to all of that. But I do like that they call him back and that he's after his Purge, Anarchy, Rage, and all that stuff. That his whole thing is now he's. I guess whatever the modern version of the Secret Service is, but he's almost like private security too, because he's way more efficient and has better tech and funding and stuff for Elizabeth Mitchell, who will always be the principal from the Santa Claus movie that falls in love with and marries Tim Allen in that one. That's what I know her from. I'm sure she did other work, but that's what I saw her. I was like, oh, it's the Santa Claus principal. So she's running for president. How nice.
She was in Lost too.
I
didn't watch Lost. I got through like 3 or 4 episodes of Lost and I realized this is fucking bullshit and it's never going to go anywhere. And I've been, as I've been told, I was proven correct by everyone who watched that show. So
no, my exact thing was the first season I was fine with. The second season, to your point, there was a whole ass episode where they do the whole backstory of the rich girl who was like sunbathing in the wreckage and shit. And like the backstory was basically like how she had like a work ethic and blah, blah. And I was like, wow, they're going to have to do a lot to like reconcile these two things. And they instantly kill her And I was just like, there is no plan for this goddamn show whatsoever. They're just doing shit. I'm out.
And we
I don't
never
wanna do
found
this.
out what was so special about the little boy. Like no one ever
Right.
tells you. He was just special. That's
That's
it.
JJ's magic box or what mystery
Fill it
box.
back
Or,
in.
yeah, what the hell he calls
I don't
it.
even
I did have
blame
a lot of
JJ because
envy.
JJ like started it, and then like
Damon Lindelof's
I say
fault.
Damon Lindelof got fucking obsessed with it. And granted, he's redeemed himself, I feel, because like I love the Watchmen show, but like
Fair.
that was that was so masturbatory.
Speaking of which,
am I
that
like-
Grogu didn't wind up in the Watchmen is sort of a surprise to me. He kind of fits the motif for it. So,
Yeah.
but anyway.
Am I the only one who saw Elizabeth Mitchell in V, the remake?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't know that one, brother.
Well, she was on the remake of V. It was her and what's her name? The girl with the short hair from Deadpool.
Oh,
Monica
yeah.
McCarran.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who was also in stuff that was good other than Deadpool.
Was she in Homeland
But
too?
She was in
Homeland.
she was in fucking Firefly. Serenity.
Okay.
too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was in that. Yeah. So
That's where I always know her from. And Gotham, but that's what I mainly know her from was Firefly.
yeah.
But yes, I knew them both from V, which I also covered for Dinner Beat a million years ago.
I see. I just remember the '80s V, and yeah, that's I didn't watch the remake because the '80s one like messed with my head so much.
Well, what was cool was for the second season, the woman from '80s V, the headband girl, whatever.
Yeah.
It's the hamster. She
Yeah.
shows up in the show as
Huh.
the mom of the Marina Baccarin character.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to go check that out at some point.
Which is cool
it's on
because they both
Tubi.
look
Yeah, I see
fairly
it all the time.
similar facially. So
Yeah, I can kind of buy it. Yeah.
like the first season is not great, but the second season is actually pretty good. Like they really tried hard to recover the show at the end. And actually I got informed through my editors that the producers like had written them and they're like, well, we thank you for giving us a chance and seeing that we're trying to do something better with the show and trying to because it's a situation where the person who did the first season didn't do the second season. So the showrunners who took over the second season got a turd to polish.
Yeah.
And they're like, we see someone is noticing how aggressively we're trying to polish this turd.
Thank you.
That's an image.
Indeed. Speaking of maintaining thing though, James DeMonico is like the Purge guy, right? This is his baby. Like he's shepherded all of this shit, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Well, I mean, I guess him and I mean it's his like creative vision, but I mean like it's I mean Jason Blum definitely pushing it along because being like I feel like by the Forever Purge, I can't remember. I feel like DeMonico stepped back somewhat.
He did offer that one. Yeah.
So it's like, but and when I was at Comic-Con last year, I was at the Blumhouse panel, and Blum was like, "I miss the Purge. Like, you guys want to bring the Purge back?" And I was like, "My brother in Christ, it has been 2 years." Like,
yeah. Can we we got a lot of them. Can you bring the show back? That's what you should have said. The show would
I
bring
mean,
back.
like I was just like, that's just a weird. Like I get that, like that's like a huge. Because the thing about the Purge is it's kind of like the whole franchise. It kind of like is almost like a perfect microcosm of like Blumhouse in general because it starts off as like basically we have no money. So we're going to make this very small movie, which is how Blumhouse started. They were like, we're going to make really small movies for no money. And then it was just like, okay, this movie made a shit ton of money. So we're going to make the next one. We're going to spend a bit more money on it. And then it just kind of like, so by the time you get to like the last couple, it's like they're just like shoveling money into it. I'm like, you've kind of like, you've gotten so far from where you started, which was the whole fucking point of this.
See, I don't know if I wouldn't say that they've been shoveling money in any of these. Because like,
comparatively, the
the
first one couldn't have been more than a couple $1 billion.
Yeah, the first one, like the Forever Purge was only like 13 million. It was less than this movie.
Yeah, they didn't spend a lot on that last one, but I would argue too. almost brought it back a little bit to the roots. Is why it's good. Patrick, you and I agree. Like I like that one. It's dumb, but it's fun.
Yeah,
because they did dial it back. So like we don't have to have this big overarching political. Let's just get this badass Latino woman to kill the fuck out of everybody, and that's pretty much what it is. And we'll have Josh Lucas say some somewhat not racist things, and then we'll go with that. So and that's
well, because everybody that's the other thing about the franchise that I think is kind of hilarious is it's always like it's like basically trying to do like political satire, but like in the most obvious way humanly possible. Like it's like there is no subtext; it is just text.
It's text,
but people are like feel like that they're like if they it's like basically the people who don't realize it is text are like, oh my god, I can't believe I figured out all the satire. I'm like, no, bro, like this could not be hitting you more over the head than it currently is.
Subtext for idiots.
Yeah. This is as subtle as South Park is in terms of its commentary, but that's actually what's accessible about it.
Yes,
is because everyone is on the line. Like there's nothing off limits. Everybody is going to be the worst of everybody gets shown, and I'll give the Purge movies credit for that. It doesn't. Everybody's like, oh gosh, this is like mirroring this and that and the other. And I was like, no, it's not. It says everybody sucks. Big, bright, bold, bloody letters. That's
It doesn't ask much. It doesn't ask a lot of you. You just kick back and watch like the worst of humans be the worst of humans, or all humans be the worst of humans.
And that's the whole setup of this movie too, is that, I mean, immediately like, okay, there's this presidential candidate who's a threat to the founding fathers, and all this stuff. And Leo Barnes, Frank Grillo's monster is going to protect her. So you automatically know like, well, she's about to get fucking thrown in the middle of it, obviously, because this would be boring otherwise. And we've also seen the trailer, which gave away half the fucking movie. So, that started a long time ago, kids. And so, you know what's going to happen. And it's just is there any fun in getting there? And to me, y'all, I don't know about y'all, the fun of this movie is not Leo and Charlie. I kind of don't care. Like, it's sort of fun. The fun of this is Joe and Marcos and Lainey kicking all kinds of ass all over the city. Like, they are the fun. Michael T. Williamson is so fun. And all of his one-liner, old crotchety man, just spouting off all this stuff. He is so funny as the deli owner who loses his insurance, and I'm going to sit on top of my store with a shotgun, and my one worker is going to help me. I loved him in this.
Goodnight, blue cheese. That's what he said.
Yes.
That was one of the funniest, like when that made the comeback, because he said blue cheese earlier in the movie. When that came back the second time around, I just cackled madly. But I
like all of the characters. I'll admit those are the most those three are like the most interesting ones. But like I do think they do a good job in this. And really, I mean, I would say in a lot of them of like managing to do the whole kind of, it's almost like the buddy cop thing, but just like on a much bigger scale. Which I like the way that they do it, where it's just like you just like mismatched like people and put them together, and it's like, well, at least we're not like religious bigots, and then it's just like, and then they kill people.
Yeah. And the Nazis are a very convenient enemy that all people should be able to get behind and hate.
I was gonna say you say that.
In movies,
super
not
easy,
in real life, obviously.
Super easy to like watching a Nazi get killed.
Can I tell y'all, I thought Terry Serpico, the first few times I saw like the scenes that he's in, I was like, I forgot Anthony Michael Hall played a Nazi in this, because he looks like Anthony Michael Hall.
Anthony Michael Hall.
He does. I can't argue that point, but I will always think of him as Kreese's mentor and like CO on Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
he's playing an equally shitty guy in this, and I was like, this poor man in the span of like I think the same year within a couple of years, it's just like they're offering him just absolute horrible people.
You'll probably never get him to come down on it, but these are Blumhouse movies, so let's remember. I feel like they pulled Anthony Michael Hall aside for Halloween Kills and said, just watch this dude. Now you're not gonna have the tattoos, but you're gonna be that guy. And I kind of feel like this whole performance is this guy if he just was some schlub running the bar in Haddonfield, Illinois, you know?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, like, I feel like this is being mean, but this guy is an exponentially better actor than Anthony Michael Hall. And I don't dislike Anthony Michael Hall. Like he's like an icon, but like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily give him the meatiest roles. Like
no, and this isn't a meaty role, but it does make for like a convenient villain. But on the other hand, like as organized as this guy is, his guys get wiped out like really easily by just people. Just like it didn't take like special training. You didn't have to call in, the Marine Corps, reserve unit or something. It's just some Crips and just some dudes, and a dude and his shop owner, wiped these guys out.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the shop owner was a Crip, so like,
fair.
And Marcos is heavily coded as some sort of like narco traffico. Hitter for the mob.
Juarez.
Yeah, he's basically doing what the fuck? Freddie Rodriguez's character El Rey in Grindhouse. He's basically doing that, where it's just like, I have a dark past in which I have done many things.
The one that's coded is Lainey Rucker, though, man, because she is like, she's basically like the whole model for Angel Reese as a basketball player now. Like as far as just like the enforcer day force on the, you can tell she's so intense, especially in this. I've never seen two teenagers argue with somebody over a chocolate bar, by the way, which was really sort of, I don't know. There's probably a message there. I didn't get it, but they were going for it. The way she talks that girl down just by looking at her though. And she gives her so much agency by saying like, oh, I didn't realize you were here, and it's like, she must be like some legendary, woman in the hood there that just people has now gone legit or whatever, but all the kids know you don't cross Lainey Rucker.
I mean, just look at how she handles herself later in the movie when it's time to do business. Like,
oh yeah,
and I believe her Pequeña Muerte is her nickname.
I think so.
Muerta, Muerta? The little death.
Yeah, which is a great nickname.
Yes.
But yeah, she's awesome in this movie. Like, she doesn't have to do a ton, but when it's time to like do business, like she's super effective. And she's got this great, like, she makes such great faces, like this great, like, this like 1,000-yard stare, but just like cold, impassive face. It's the kind of it's very similar, actually, kind of some of the faces Marcos makes in the movie. It's the face of like, I have killed people before, I will kill people again, and I will kill you right now.
I feel like Lupita Nyong'o borrowed this when she's in Us too, and she's playing Adelaide Red. She's got a little bit of that going on too. Some of that just steely intensity, I call it.
Steely. Yeah. Something felt like extra violating about non-Americans killing people.
Yeah, that's what I
had that flying.
Okay.
Yeah,
like when
I was like,
idea of Purge tourist. I'm like, that. I feel like this is like, there's not many times where I agree with the idea of closing the borders, but like this is one where I'm like, maybe not. Maybe we don't have other people coming in for this. Like
when they were closing in and we had that shot of all of these masks, and I couldn't really. It sounded like a bunch of different accents, but probably mostly Russian.
They were mostly coded as Eastern European.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they are all speaking Russian.
Okay. All right. And I was just like, get out of our country. And then I was like, am I watching propaganda? Am I supposed to feel this way? I don't think I'm supposed to feel this way, but it really, something felt extra violating about that.
I mean, I love the commentary of it, though, that like at some point the Purge would have gone on long enough that it did become a cottage industry that got exported. Yeah. Of course it will. As Jeff Goldblum taught us, you're going to slap it on a lunchbox, you're going to sell it. And that's what happens with the Purge. Right?
Well, because like the whole idea of it is like, it's kind of funny that like basically the whole commentary of it is that like basically people just want to kill people and like whatever. So like that's why you're kind of showing that it's not just like rich white people, but like I don't think they show a single non-white face in the new founding fathers. So like
Yes.
it's not subtle in what
No.
they're ultimately saying of
Mm-mm.
like the whole thing of it basically being kind of people want to kill minorities and this is their opportunity to do so.
Oh, I
And
don't think
like
it's subtle at all. The fact that they have like an entire religious service
Yeah.
tied around, like the
Yeah.
purge has become religion, has become the purge. You know, like that's
Yeah.
Now, I
When
will
they said the
say,
phrase, sorry, Ron, blessed our new founding fathers,
Yeah.
I really wanted to just throw up in my mouth a little bit.
yeah.
now I will say for this watch, I looked specifically at the crowd to see if I could find one person who wasn't white. I found one person who might have been Asian, and I found one black guy who
Oh,
looked uncannily like Clarence Thomas. So I feel like there's a message there too.
Yeah. Oh, there totally was. You know there was. So
interesting.
it's
Well, it's like because the whole thing is the election year, and I was like, it's because basically the choice we keep getting every year is like, do you want a religious bigot or do you want like someone that's sane that's going to make like the tiniest bit of progress instead of taking us back to the Stone Age? And this movie is basically just like the extreme version of that.
This is the live action version of the South Park skit. Do you want to vote for a douche or a turd sandwich? That's kind of what it is. I mean, the thing is, and this is what I've always found interesting about the Purge is that it's easy to set up the new founding fathers as like these super religious bigots, you know, and all that because they play it. I mean, we can see it. It's in our world. Right. So, but what they always do is that the resistance is also this disorganized mess because the resistance would be criminals who don't exactly consort, you know? So how do you make that work? And, you know, if the Dark Knight taught us anything, it taught us that criminals organizing usually doesn't work out well. You got to have somebody that's willing to go places that you're not. And nobody, you know, did in this. So I don't know. I thought it was a neat juxtaposition of all these things with, it was a movie that had a lot to say without actually saying something. And I don't mean like it didn't have a message, but like, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say that, and you figure it out. You know, it's it's like going to a Golden Corral. You know, do you want to have steak and something that used to be lobster or spaghetti, or do you want to have some chicken nuggets? It's all here, kids. It's all for you.
Or do you just want to get diarrhea because you went to Golden Corral?
Do you want some soft serve that you overpaid for? Here you go. Golden Corral.
Welcome to Golden Corral. Here's a cold.
Golden Corral, the official restaurant of the Purge.
Well, I feel like they had a lot of fun with it. Like everything in this movie, all the kills, there was one of my favorites. There were two, but one of them was when Charlie and Leo were running away from something I don't remember, and Leo catches a tripwire and that like thing comes down. When they run away, you hear the people on the other sides that set it up, and they were like, "Oh man, we thought we got you. All right, well, have a good purge night." And they were just like, laughing, like, "We'll get the next one that comes through." Like, people are just having themselves a good old time,
like a Halloween prank that didn't go. All right,
good luck, guys. And then there's the whole. Jay, I know you are not, but Pat and Ron, if either of you are Monty Python fans, the whole bring out your dead cart, like, come on.
Oh, yes.
I loved that part.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say your favorite kill, though, was when the teenagers show back up with the blinged out V-dub.
Oh, no.
AK.
That 100% best costume. I bet those actresses, well, except maybe the furry, I bet the actresses fucking loved those costumes. Like,
oh yeah,
how badass! Like, that's a perfect Halloween costume, and I cannot believe that I've not seen that Halloween costume in any of my travels, because a giant blinged out gun and like a bloody tutu and a mask that says "Kiss Me," perfect. It's perfection.
See, I took it as like, you know, y'all all remember back when like the thing was to get your cell phone and bling it out.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this is sort of like in the world of the American world of the Purge, the kids would have blinged out guns now. Like, sure, why not? You know, that would be their thing.
I mean,
well, just like think about the first movie. How does Ethan Hawke afford that big ass house? He sells like custom security systems.
Yep.
Everybody's got to hustle. Like even in this movie, we see the one dude who's dressed like Art the Clown. Shout out to Anthony from Tis the Podcast. Who
So
is
glad
like
you brought that up.
selling
Yes.
masks
Yes.
for purgers.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, home of the Derby. One of the things that they show on TV every year for the Derby, regardless of whether you're watching it on local TV or watching on the network, is the Derby hat. And there are people who make a year's living off of making hats for one day.
Wow.
Yeah. Like there's a place, there's a milliner like in a very expensive part of town. And I know one person that's gotten a hat from there, and it was like an $800 hat.
Wow.
So like if they're charging an $800 hat for a local, imagine how much they're charging like these celebrities you see with the big crazy hats showing up for Derby. Like there's a dude whose only job is to like put Swarovski crystals on the butt of an AK-47. And that's what he does for his living. And that's one of the things that I really like about this movie, and I liked about the TV show, is they really go into the economics of how the purge affects the rest of the year. Like, one of the things that Bishop is talking about is like, this is capitalism. It makes money for the NRA and for the insurance companies and so on and so forth. And it's like, it's making a lot of people a lot of money, because like, so you can't just buy like a bling applique for an AK-47, at least in this country now. Somebody chromed that thing for you.
Yeah.
Somebody put those crystals on there. Like money was spent to bling out this AK. Money was spent on all these cool neon masks, because you can get purge style masks, but they're like $150 or $200. If you get a good one, they're expensive.
I'll tell you how I took their outfits, Lindsay. The girls, not the furry. I'll come to him, that person in a second. But the girls were like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, but with lights. You know, it's very much that. And I was like, I kind of dig that vibe.
And it was like a super girly steampunk almost.
Yes.
But like a Mad Maxy girly, cutesy, very demure steampunk.
Very mindful.
There you go.
Very mindful.
Yes.
I mean,
very
I
mindful
think it's
AK-47.
Yeah, is like, I do think it's weird because they established it obviously before this, but it's like the fact they're wearing masks at all. I'm like, if crime is legal, why would you even bother? Like, this is obstructing efficient.
But to Ron's point, it has become such a thing.
I'm just saying,
it's no longer the neighbors going over to kill the asshole who sold me my too expensive garage door opener or whatever. Now it's no, I got to dress up for the purge. Like I have friends that are not football fans that throw absolute banger Super Bowl parties, and everybody gets dressed up in some kind of a costume, and you know you do all
like
this.
Think about Mardi Gras.
Yeah, same idea.
It is like a murdery Mardi Gras. It is a murder gras.
Yeah, Murder Gras. I love that.
Murder Gras.
We do see
actually would be the next movie.
We do see a couple of like the purge parties as well throughout. This movie. We see the very first one, like where they're all hanging out on the balcony and stuff. Looks like it's an absolute banger of a party.
Oh yeah, I mean totally. I mean, if you're secure enough, that's what you do, right? That's you have the we're going to survive the purge party. I mean, these two girls that when they come back to the store, man, they clearly have been partying themselves, because I got the furry. Like, let's talk about this, because that was not someone who was introduced that we were like, oh, that's obviously comes back as the furry. The chainsaw wielding furry was like a choice, you know, that I feel like showed up in like Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, too. Like there's a little bit of that vibe going on. There's a lot happening with that.
Okay,
I love
Jay,
that.
So
I love that teenage girls in a city know how to use a chainsaw.
Also fair. Yes.
That is the most unbelievable part for me.
So I will say, Jay.
Yes.
I went to the Alabama Renaissance Fair in Florence, Alabama.
Yes.
Like last year or the year before.
Oh, you have seen some choice costuming, sir.
My credit card did get hacked.
Yep.
But other than that, I had a good time. But one of the things that I noticed was there was like a group of like 10 furries and their handlers who were in their full fursuits who showed up to the Ren Fair.
Oh my gosh.
Do furry things like at the Ren Fair. So like people are just kind of looking for excuses to get their fursuit on.
I guess, man. I just blame Stanley Kubrick in that one scene from The fucking Shining for just keeping that in the cultural zeitgeist all these
the
years.
literal fucking Shining.
I mean, the only thing the thing is like that's my only thing is I was just like, because the whole idea presumably of the mask is like to protect your identity, but like if the crime is legal, I'm like, if you're trying to use, especially if you're trying to use like a gun, okay, for instance, like last year for Halloween I was Ghostface, and like I was taking a kid trick-or-treating, and like literally when I had to cross the street I would have to move my entire head like to look either way, and it's like, if you're wearing a full mask like all night while you're trying to like shoot said AK-47, I feel like that's problematic and like pointless. Like that's my only thing with it. Is it's like, why? Like why? Like why?
I don't want to speak for everybody here. I've had the opportunity to fire an AK-47, not a fully automatic one, but fire one a few times. And while they are pretty easy to operate, they're not the most accurate weapon in the world to just pick up and shoot. Like you got to know what you're doing with it because it's got a lot of kick going on.
I was just about to say, there's a kick. There's a kick.
Yeah,
it's
With any big gun, there's a kick.
Yeah, it's got a unique rapport too, and I will give the Foley credit a lot of work here. The guns all sounded like they're supposed to sound in this movie.
And I will say that I don't see a lot of people wearing glasses with their masks. So somebody's got some contact lenses or something, or they're just like taking their glasses off and they're just kind of squinting through their mask, which is also not going to help your visibility, which is why you see a lot of people just like spray firing and not hitting anything throughout the movie.
Yeah. But when Laney shows up and mows those people down, that is
so satisfying.
Yes.
What a satisfying kill that was. I was waiting for it. I knew it was going to happen, and I really was just waiting for the payoff. I've never wanted teenage girls to die so much in my entire life.
And it's such satisfying ragdoll physics too.
It was, yeah. And the way the boots fly off when she gets hit.
It's very much like when you're bored after hours of playing Grand Theft Auto and you just said, fuck it, and you just turn down the pier and just start mowing people down.
Now, has anyone else here seen a person get hit by a car, or is that just me?
I have, yes, I have survived that. So
did you get hit by a car?
Yeah, I got hit by a truck when I was 8, so I am a survivor of the ragdoll, sir.
Did it knock you out of your shoes?
Yeah, yes, it did, and I don't think they ever found one of them actually. So
when I saw the guy get hit by the car jaywalking, he got knocked right out of his shoes.
Yep,
he flew like 10 feet. Hit the concrete, rolled a couple times, jumped up, and then ran to the sidewalk and immediately sat down.
Oh yeah, no, I was no moving, but yes, my shoes were in different places. So yeah, end of that. So yeah, no, I can believe it though. I love the whole effect of it. I mean, again, because it's. I hate to be the old man that does this kind of thing, but I'm just going to say it. The practicality of that looks good. That was some good setup. Like we got some good mannequins and a lot of good K-Rose syrup. We're just going to smear it all over that fucking street right now, and it just looked great. And again, you called it, Ron, in the plot summary, the twisted metal ambulance. I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm down for that. Like, she just needed to roll in with like some badass music, which I'm sure they didn't have money for, to do. But that would have been.
They probably honestly did. Like, at this point, they're spending clearly. I think a fair amount of money, like compared to the first one. Like, but yeah, no, like that's I think the whole like vibe of that character and that ambulance is really cool because like I like the idea when they're like that like all emergency services will be suspended during the course of the purge. I like the idea that there are people who are still like, people still need help and I'm going to help them, even if it means my safety. Like that informs as much about that character, I feel like, as the whole thing of doing her backstory is basically being like a murderous tiny creature. Like the fact that she used to be a murderous tiny creature and is now so secure in herself that she's going out on Purge night to save people. Like that says a lot.
We got 4 characters that are all doing that. You've got Marcos, Joe, her, and Leo. in a lot of ways. They're all reformed. Leo was a cop who then went off the edge and, went on the revenge tour and all that kind of stuff. And then Joe and Marcos, as we've talked about, have gang backgrounds. Laney clearly does. But they've all reformed now where they can still be badass, but they're like using their power for good, right? Which is the idea. And Charlie is the one that's just sort of hovering above all of this shit. Because all we know about her is what happens in that opening scene, and then a few platitudes that they let her talk about and stuff, and that she's going to be the sacrifice and distress at the end. But those four are the one that really center this thing.
Yeah,
because I was expecting her to kill at least one at least someone. I really was prepped and ready for her to pick up a gun, and then it's like, oh yeah, ever since the Purge, I'm actually like I'm a sharpshooter and have been practicing jujitsu, and I'm a black belt in taekwondo. You know what I mean?
Well,
like I really was totally expecting her to kick ass, but
to at least do the Mr. Miyagi at the beginning of the Karate Kid 2 and like beat the hell out of somebody and get them right down to the end and just honk their nose or something, like, no, it ain't worth it, So I let them.
That would defeat her whole like message.
That was my thing too. Is I was like, that's why it never occurred to me that she would kill anybody, because like whenever there's even like the mention, like that's the whole thing, is like basically the whole like third act is like Dante, who has the other thing. I had no idea, because I saw the second one first, so I had no idea that was an important character. Like when they brought him back, and like so when they brought him back for this one, like I by this point I understood, because I watched them in order when I watched them again. But like the whole thing is like her constantly trying to stop him from committing violence, and like because I think think about these movies that I think is like both. It's very sweet, but it also like is not necessarily what I believe, but like the whole idea, it's kind of like the same idea as like in like Batman vs Superman, like at the end, like when Bruce Wayne is like, people are like, men are still good. It's like the whole thing of like basically the message of these movies is like, people are still good deep down, like it just these guys are bad. And I was just like, I want to believe what you're saying. I really do. But like the fact that like you have people coming from other countries and like people in their communities just fucking murking people suggests that people are not still good. Like, so you're illustrating that Dante is like whatever, like he's not killing, like because he's like they're still good. And I'm just like, yeah, but like I feel like that message kind of doesn't completely land, because real life is kind of superseding that.
Well, I just go back to what Tommy Lee Jones taught us all in Men in Black, is that a person is smart and logical and compassionate. People are stupid and paranoid. And that's this entire movie series premises, that people, if you rile them up enough and give them an excuse, they will fuck around and find out. And that's pretty much it.
People travel to other countries to do terrible things all the time. Not just
Americans. No, I know.
That's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I automatically think anybody who goes to Thailand is a little suspicious.
Okay.
Looking at you, Cliff Kingsbury.
Especially Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I mean, we see like all of these. I mean, I mentioned the kids that sounded like they were just having a good old time. And then people like the guy who had just covered himself in blood and was like yelling.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, survival of the fittest. And then I'm thinking, I have to wonder, what day of the week does the Purge fall on? Because like, do they have a couple weekend days to kind of like decompress afterwards?
You got to go back to work? Yeah.
What does that look like? Does anyone know?
Lindsey will not make the 8:30 today, y'all.
Yeah.
So, God bless the
like
Purge.
what does that look like?
Yeah, I wonder the same. Yeah, that's a good. What day of the week is the Purge? It's got to be a Friday.
It's like a Tuesday.
Yeah, no, it's got to be a Friday. Like Purge is Friday. It's the third Friday of.
There's no way a bunch of capitalists running a country are going to give up a week work day. They're going to do that on a Saturday and Sundays for cleanup, because you already got those days off, and by Monday you're going to be putting your AK-47 away, and you're going to be going back to your job at the candle factory.
That's a good point. Yeah. So I had thought about that tracks, kind of works. So, yeah.
Well, everybody's going to be going back to work the day after the Purge, because there's a lot of like very
A lot of work to
costly
do.
clean. There's a lot of cleanup that can be done.
That's something we're not talking about, and they've never showed it in this. Like, there's an entire cottage industry just in purge cleanup that has got to be like rolling in the dough, man. Because like there's great industry and like people that go in and clean up like burnouts and stuff like that, like houses and and disasters, floods, all that kind of stuff. And they do really well. They do a great job still, but like there's got to be purge cleanup, like kickback and fall money, man. Come on, And if the government is the one that's organizing the cleanup, man, imagine that bid process. I'm sure that wasn't corrupt at all.
Oh, it was corrupt because the government is 100% involved in giving out those contracts.
Of course,
yeah, that's a juicy government contract. I mean, I feel like I'm the dude in the clerks here is like, that's a juicy government contract. You're not giving that up at purge night, But
there's a whole that all the cleanup probably goes straight to Halliburton.
Fair, yeah, probably so.
Yeah, well, Halliburton and like Deloitte.
Yeah, Danziger used to do a little work with Halliburton on the side, man. Like he just let those patches come out after he, honorably discharged or what the hell ever.
Deloitte.
Yeah.
Well, I learned recently that the big government contractor agencies, especially around DC, because there's a lot of them, like each agency has their very specific personalities. So you can tell if someone works for Deloitte or if someone works for Khaki or if someone, there's a bunch of them. And I never really put it together until I heard someone talking about it. And I was like, oh no, that totally makes sense.
As someone who's been around college recruiting a long time, each of the big four accounting firms are very different.
UI and
PwC and KPMG and Deloitte are very different kinds of street gang.
Yeah, I know a lot of Lockheed Martin I know a lot of Lockheed folks. Lockheed is.
Yeah, Lockheed's a different vibe. Well, I
like their vibe. They're pretty chill. I mean, the people I know who work there were,
The ones that I always thought were fun were like Exxon and Chevron used to recruit this big chemical engineering group I had, and it was sharks and jets. Like we could not keep them on the same side of the career fair. Like, split them, and they were the same color too, which was funny. The blue, red, and white. So it was always fun to get that. I mean, they were friendly about it, but it was kind of a joke that.
So they'd be like, "What if they fought during the purge to settle the score of who got the cleanup contract? Whoever loses the least,
Halliburton Waste Management." And
it's funny because one of the plot lines on the Purge TV show for the first season is somebody makes a plot to kill her bosses so she can be promoted up the corporate ladder.
Yes, yeah, I remember that. Yep, it's like Office Space, but way more violent. So, but not as good a use as gangster rap. I will say that Office Space is genius for that, but. I like the action in this though too. I mean, I think it's all Purge movies all have a different level of like fight sequences and stuff like that. I mean, typified by that knife fight at the end, which is straight a ripoff out of I think it's Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro, The Hunted. Yeah, that felt very much like that. I kind of like that though. I like a good knife fight in the movie. You don't get them that much these days. So.
Well, but the thing is that it's why I always kind of take issue because I get why it's comfortable for it to like kind of fit into it, but I always kind of take issue with like the whole idea of the Purge movies as horror. Is I'm like they're not really like they're basically just like really violent action movies. But I was just like because for example, like if you put this movie up against like Timo's The Night Comes for Us. Like that movie is so much more like that movie is one of two movies ever, the other one being Martyrs, that physically exhausted me watching it because it was just so fucking much. And like so it's like when you do this, like I was like that's more horrific. Like this is more like just like a fun action romp. That just like it's just that we've come to a point where action is kind of so it's either kind of on one extreme or another. Basically it's like you have action in terms of like in like let's say like Marvel, Star Wars, whatever, and then you have like DTV, but like there's like this huge chasm in the middle, and I feel like that's kind of what the Purge is doing, but because it's like people aren't used to that anymore, it's like, oh, these are horror films, and I'm like, Not really. Like I was like, there's elements like here and there, like obviously the masks and shit. Like it's very kind of like over the top. But I was
Mhm.
like, this is mostly action, which I don't, and I'm not in any way saying in an insulting way. But it's like I always thought it was weird that people were calling them like because I said like, the first one when I saw the trailer, I was like, it's Assault on Precinct 13, which is awesome, but it's not one of Carpenter's horror films. Like that's maybe like it has horror elements,
Mhm.
but it's not a horror film. And this is kind of the same thing where it's like there's elements that are there, but mostly it's like this just big violent fucking action movie. All of them.
No, Patrick, I think you're onto something. The Purge movies are not horror movies. The concept is
Yeah,
horrific.
yeah,
This
yes.
idea, but they are action thrillers, And when you get to the third one, at that point, we've done the thrill ride. You've ridden the roller coaster. So now what do you have to do? You have to populate it with people that can make it fun to follow, right? And as we've all talked about, we like these characters. Even the goofy Nazi who looks like Anthony Michael Hall. It's fun to follow them because you're like, okay, these are like cartoons that I
Yes.
can get behind. It's very much Saturday morning cartoon violence, and I'm down for all of that.
There was even a really real moment with the Nazi guy at the end when they delivered Charlie and he was like, "All right, let's go home and get some sleep, buddy."
Yeah.
Like they just finished their night at work and now they're heading home. Just your average
I mean, they're probably
every run
sitting
of the
there going
mill,
like, "Man, I got to get that report done, or Johnson's going to ream me Monday."
right?
God dang it, So
It's just
No, we
like
can't.
pieces of it are weirdly relatable.
yeah,
We can't.
right, yeah.
We can't call him Nazi Anthony Michael Hall. He's Anthony Reichel Heil.
Oh no,
man.
no. All right, I've been hanging up.
Yeah, that went into a Puppet Master the Littlest Reich place. But also stay tuned. So
Yeah, but also, thank you for the mention of The Night Comes for Us. That reminds me, I've got a lost film strip episode of myself and Lindsay talking about The Night Comes for Us that I never edited because I'm
yeah.
extremely lazy.
It's not lost yet. It'll be in the feed someday. Eventually, I'll edit it. I wasn't even knowing it.
So, like, there's references to like the Carter administration.
So
Yeah. I want to talk about the religious service situation and that the Cal Secor's character is, what'd you call him, Ron? Like evil
Creepy Culkin.
Yeah, creepy Culkin. Yeah, no, I was watching this going like, if we just stuck Joel Osteen away from the tanning bed for a year, this is what he might become. It's this kind of thing. But I love the conceit of it, the idea that the new founding fathers and the purge would be wrapped up in some sort of twisted version of religion, right? Like it would come down to that. And I like that they're going to do this sacrifice. So I feel like Kevin Smith sort of ripped this off in Red State.
Red State predates this. Red State was like 5 years before.
Oh, he was before this. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe they're borrowing from him. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hate him for that
Hmm.
movie because he pussed out at the end.
Yeah,
But anyway, so because that should have been the Ratchet, that would have been the best ending ever. But anyway, but it's the same idea, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's what makes that movie kind of. I mean, that movie's tough to watch in a lot of ways, but the religious ceremonies of it and stuff, that's some intense shit, and this is just the same. It's a little fast forwarded, but I dug it. So what did y'all think of it?
I mean, that thing is like we really like for me, Kyle Secor will always be Tim Bayliss from Homicide from when I was a kid. So like I literally can't like even he was on my third favorite show ever because you mentioned The Shield, which is my second, and then Veronica Mars is my third. And he was on that. Still can't see him as anything but Tim Bayliss. So the entire time I'm looking at him like, why is Tim Bayliss becoming a religious bigot? That doesn't make any sense. But like, he was a man that was struggling with his sexuality. Like, what's going on? But that whole like thing of, I mean, they kind of explored it to some extent, and I guess in the second one to a different. It wasn't exactly the same. But, like the whole idea of like kind of the purge being because that's the whole thing. I was like the conceit of it is it's like getting it all out of our souls and blah blah. And it's like, I mean, it's kind of spot on, and just in terms of like the inherent hypocrisy of a lot of the people that like go into that. We're just like they really love Jesus, but they don't like the teachings of Jesus. They don't like, and it's kind of a similar thing where it's just like they have this idea, and in doing so are like, yeah, you know the Ten Commandments? Fuck those. Like, we're just gonna like, it's like those are totally just all like, we can do whatever the fuck we want. And it's like, but aren't you supposed to be religious? It's just like, that's like, it's pretty much a perfect kind of summation of a lot of modern day stuff in that arena. So like, it's kind of spot on, but it's like but no, like Cal Secor is really fucking going for it. Like,
yeah, pretty much all of those guys playing the new founding fathers. Every time we see them, they're just 100% like just seething and frothing at the mouth, and like you could see the little spit things flying out of their mouth every time, especially every time they mention Charlie. Like, they're just
I feel like Raymond J. Barry was doing like this evil Mr. Rogers thing. Yeah, it's kind of what he had going on. You know, he kind of felt
I thought he was more like an evil version of the old man from RoboCop.
Okay, you know what? Yep, I could buy that. Yeah. So he was if Ronnie Cox had taken over for the old man, it was if Ronnie Cox was
the old man bad in RoboCop 2. It's been a while, but I feel like he was, or not Ronnie Cox, Dan O'Hurley. Wasn't he bad in RoboCop? I hate.
Did he go bad in the Nuke Age? I don't remember.
I don't think he was like bad in either one. I think he was just like heartless capitalist in both of them.
Yeah, it's like, Dick, I'm very disappointed in you. Also, look at this thing of Stonehenge. The hills will run red with blood. Also, don't use Death Blossom and lead up all the fucking battery. It's 3 Dan O'Hurley performances in a row, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome.
Like reviews, they stay for Jay's impressions.
My favorite part of the whole church service was you could see which ones were important because they were wearing the big like Flavor Flav Eagle necklace.
Yes, they were. Yeah. It's like they all had Purge marathon medals or something.
Well, to me, it was more like it was all right, we get it. You guys really like Starship Troopers and you have no idea what Verhoeven is saying, so you like the cool eagle that they have, so you took that and made it your symbol.
Hey Ron, I'm doing my part.
And I would like to know more because I want one of those big Flavor Flav Eagles.
I mean, fair. Also, I want to see that brand of football. Like the weirdest conceit of that, the most unbelievable thing was that arena football would be that popular. So no, not true. But anyway, I digress about Starship Troopers. But it's also a stay tuned. How we haven't done that in 14 years of film strip is somewhat beyond me, but. You know, because we've
never done Starship Troopers.
We've never done Starship Troopers. Yeah, put that on the list. I think Lindsey getting excited. So yeah. So, always down for that. But no, I love the big showdown in the church, and that, you know, again, for a movie that started off, the movie series, it started off small, like you said, Patrick, and then it got bigger and bigger. This one's been kind of big and all over the place, but then we're going to bring it down and we're just going to have a shootout in a church. Yeah. And it's a pretty bad shootout, man. It's Ron, I think you called it like John Woo-ish. I'm like, yeah, it feels like a lot of woo in this shootout here.
Yeah, especially the very final scene where
Joe,
not Cal Secor, the creepy little
the not Pennywise,
the creepy, toady, creepy little bastard, looking kind of like Nick Stahl.
Yes.
How dare you, sir?
Nick Stahl from, what was it? Not The Faculty. What was
Disturbing Behavior?
Yeah, Disturbing. Thank you, Disturbing Behavior. Yes. Very Nick Stahl from that. Which that's not a bad movie, by the way.
Hell no. I love Disturbing Behavior.
I know. I was like, that just struck a core memory.
Yeah. I mean, there's like some aughts horror that was really good that
yes.
forgotten. There's some really good shit. So yeah. But
no, Rob and I have not forgotten Disturbing Behavior. I assure you.
Oh no. I know that's what we have you on the show, because you know the good things. But I love the in shootouts and stuff. Of course, you know Joe's gonna have to die. I'm like, okay, yeah, but you know, is it at least memorable? And it is. At least he goes down doing what he would. He gets shot off, finish the dude off. So I was okay with it. You know.
I mean, even before that though, I love like the whole actual like where they kind of like take the siege, where just like you have like Grillo go and take the guy out, and then it's like they already have her about to get killed, and it's just like rifle, and then like just comes up, just, boom, just perfect shot, like right through his head.
Yes.
And goes right down. I was like, that dude has clearly seen some action in his time. That was not his first. This was not his first rodeo.
No, it's not. That is not that man's first time staring down a scope. He clearly
Not even a
knew what
scope.
that
He's
was.
doing it like through the iron sights. God bless him.
Shit, he's even better, man. That
yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
It's like the Turkish Olympian.
Yes, exactly.
One hand in his pocket. He's got it. It's
The
fine.
Turkish Olympian would be untouchable in the Purge. by the way. So, that's who I want to be my Frank Grillo in the Purge, is the Turkish Olympian. So.
But yeah, no, that whole scene I like, and then yeah, no, I like the way that it kind of keeps like kind of almost like building from like one thing to another thing to another thing, because then it's like you go from that to the whole thing with like them all trapped in that little room where they kind of their that reveal, and then you have the whole thing where then it goes outside, and you have like the final showdown between like Grillo and Cobra Kai commander, and like it's all just like this like action sequence into action sequence and action sequence, but doing it in such a way where it's not overwhelming, which I thought was actually like, especially because DeMonico, I want to say this is like his second movie. I don't remember if he did I know he wrote the first one. I don't know if he directed it, but like so it's either like his second or third movie. And it's like the fact that his chops were enough that he was just able to like pull this shit off is really impressive, I feel like.
No, it is well done. And you're right that it's staged well and the flow of that works well. Like we can all think about movies where like that just feels really jumpy, like there's no like flow between them, but there's definitely a flow in between all these. And I don't know, I'm with you, Patrick. I like the way it works. And I mean, he's got a good visual sense that makes it work. But you said something a minute ago when you called him the Cobra Kai commander, and I just had a thought. Wouldn't it be more badass if it was Leo Barnes versus the Cobra Commander? All right, Barnes, it's time. That would have been epic, right? If we could have gotten that.
But to be fair, the Cobra Commander that we would have gotten, because like in the movie, it was just Gordon-Levitt. That's not really
that was not as good. I'm sorry. So I don't recognize those. I only recognize the cartoons.
That's fine. That's honestly fine
because they also fit better. Those cartoons were total capitalist nonsense. But,
oh yeah,
but I mean that would have been even more epic if somebody had done that. But no, it's a great set of fight sequences and all that, and we glimpsed to the end that we want. And you know what would happen if you got the anti-purge person elected, right? Because in this world, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. I don't remember them saying like Congress is not really a thing anymore. Like we're pretty much electing emperor at this point, right? Like I feel like the president is sort of the one doing everything.
They don't really like. I don't think they ever explicitly say whether or not like that's gone away, but like it definitely feels like.
Well, she is a senator. Of some
I was
sort.
just about to say.
Okay.
She's a senator.
Okay.
But I feel like their power is not as.
I feel like the NFFA is enough of a majority.
Yeah.
To that it doesn't really matter that they're kind of just a rubber stamp for
Oh, okay.
That's why I think they specifically mentioned that she's going to do an executive action.
Oh, okay.
An executive order to end the purge.
Okay, then that makes more sense then. So, but I like the way that we end on that, and with this idea of like it wouldn't be immediate, right? Like there's going to be a lot of resistance to the purge.
Well, they even do that. They did that little bit where they were like, there's huge pockets of resistance of like because it's like okay, again, the subtext is not subtext, like, and they just managed to actually kind of call something a few years early in terms of like January 6th, but like there's the whole thing where they in like the post credits or like in I guess while the credits are playing, where they're like basically that the new founding father sympathizers are basically like rioting in the streets, and I'm like, okay, but like I feel like that's kind of like in real life where if you don't have like the person that you want in charge, you're still kind of fucked. Because it's like that's my whole thing. It's always been there the idea of a civil war. Is I'm like, okay, but that only is scary on one side, because like if it's the other side, you just have drones, so it doesn't really matter how great your home arsenal is, like when they can just deploy a drone to your home and There goes the
It's
arsenal.
it's the same logic when people say stupid shit like the best college football team could beat the worst NFL team. The worst NFL team would beat the hell out of them kids. Do not kid yourself. The Carolina Panthers would murder the Georgia Bulldogs right now. I'm sorry, and they're the worst team, but Daniel Jones would throw for 5,000 yards on those people. When you're a professional, as Eric Dickerson once said, "Get over here. I'm a grown ass man. I'll kick your ass." You don't. The kids, no, but it's the same idea. You're right. It's that, so okay. So we changed the law and we're empowered, but there's some fucking people out there that are really pissed about it. Well, okay, where is the military and the police in this? Because we've never really seen them in action, right? So we don't know what that presence would look like.
The only thing we see them do is raid the Bishop compound.
Right. Exactly.
And we don't really know if those are like the military, if those are just like the NFFA's personal hit squad.
Yeah.
Or if they're just more expensive Nazi mercenaries.
Right. Yeah. I kind of took them as that they were just like the personal hit squad of the group. They were the Marshall Stockburn's deputies from Pale Rider of the NFFA. If you guys have seen that, that's kind of what they were. I mean, I feel like that works and it tracks.
No, yeah, that's my whole thing is like and also I think this was like, I don't know if it was meant to be like the end, but it's like you can kind of tell like they didn't really have a plan going forward. That's why the next one is the first Purge, because it was like this one you kind of resolved it, because it was just kind of like, okay, so like we now have a sane person in power and like, whatever. And then because that didn't happen in real life so much, it was like, oh, hey, like, I guess we can do more of these movies. And so then they went and they did the first Purge, and that was also very successful. So then it was like, okay, so now I guess we'll do the Forever Purge.
And the Forever Purge message is like, no matter who you elect, everything's fucked.
Yes.
So everything sucks. So,
which is real.
I mean, Real Big Fish taught us that a long time ago, kids. Everything sucks.
Oh, Jay, thank you for referencing Real Big Fish.
Yes.
Great.
Speaking of things that suck or that may not suck, I think it's about time that we head to our final thoughts, popcorn ratings, and the last things we have to say before the NFFA kick in our doors and drag us off to some sort of black site prison. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, a popcorn rating is the larger the popcorn, the more you like the movie. We go anywhere from extra small to extra large popcorn, and any kind of additions you want to add onto there, extra butter, salt, chocolate covered peanuts. Whatever you want to add into your popcorn you're more than welcome to if you feel it's a necessary thing. So Patrick, you are our guest and you get to go first. What are your thoughts and popcorn rating for the Purge election year?
I would say probably like a medium popcorn with extra butter, like extra salt and butter. Like it's like, because it's like, I would say it's definitely not like, as I said, it's not like my favorite. Like there's ones that I like way more than this, but like I still really enjoy it. Like I think it's funny is like for a franchise that I had no interest in until like a year ago, I am now very much into. So it's like even the ones that I don't think are the best ones, I still think are actually pretty solid. And so so this one I would definitely say is like, it's not my favorite, but it's definitely a good time. There's really nothing I have negative to say about it. So I definitely, I think it's solid. I think there's other installments that are better, but I think this is definitely like it's worthy of people's time. Like as we kind of established, like you really can just kind of jump into it without seeing the other ones and not probably be that affected. So like if you listening to this and you haven't seen any other ones, granted we've spoiled a lot of things, but like if you haven't, then I feel like it's something that I would recommend. Like if everything that we've described sounds intriguing, 100%, it is 100% worth your time.
I would agree with that. Lindsay?
I also really enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. I don't know if I didn't go into it with low expectations. I know what the Purge franchise is. I know what I'm getting. But the movie was just so enjoyable to watch. I could just sit back. I didn't have to think a whole lot. It was really efficient at the start, which I mentioned. The needle drops, which I don't think we talked about a ton, but they were, I mean, like really, really good. From the very opening song, I gotta make a mention of it. I think it's 20th Century Boy by T-Rex is what it was. Like that I loved to start, and then the Miley Cyrus in the car. So I'm gonna give it a large popcorn. I'm 100% gonna watch this again. It's going into the rotation for sure. So I'm gonna stick with it. Just a solid large popcorn.
Yeah, there were some great needle drops all throughout the movie, and the person who would usually point that out would be Jay. Jay, what do you have to say?
Yeah, good use of ironic music, is what I say. I'm always a
Mhm.
sucker for that. Going back to Mr. Sandman and Halloween 2 is probably my entry into that. I have a lot of fun with this movie because it doesn't waste any of your time. It gets you in, it gets you out. It's a perfect pop rock record. It's 39 minutes and 48 seconds, 11 tracks. There's one kind of slow one in there that you can skip. So what? Go to the bathroom during that scene. And the rest of them are kind of bangers. It's an all-time low record in a lot of ways. There's a lot of good stuff. It's fun. Some of it you're gonna feel bad that you like, but it's okay, because it's just goes down easy. And as far as like in the Purge franchise, it's not my favorite one, but I actually like this one and find it easier to go back and rewatch than some of the other ones because that first one is such a kind of a riff on the Strangers and Assault on Precinct 13, a lot of other stuff, and it's ranching the tension up so much that when it finally releases, it's a lot. The second one is just this balls to the wall insanity, which can be a little bit much. This one, though, I feel like is a good bridge between like this and what the greatness that the television show was, because you get so much of the outside stuff. And I had a lot of fun with it. It's a balanced set of good character actors delivering good performances, even if they are kind of campy in some ways, or they remind you of Anthony Michael Hall. Either way, I mean, I think they work and it makes it fun. So I'm going medium popcorn on this, but I'm adding a real interesting modifier. Put a little bit of cinnamon sugar on that bad boy with your butter. It's just a little sweetness in there with your saltiness, and you'll have a good time with the Purge election year.
I also had a good time with the Purge election year. We're all going to be kind of ballpark buds on this one. I am going to go with a large popcorn. Like everybody's pointed out, there's not a lot of like huge flaws in the movie. It's a completely different movie than the first one. It's a completely different movie than the second one. One of the things I like about the Purge as a series is you're not really getting the same movie twice. You're getting a little different thing every time. And it's going to be variations on a theme, but I think that can be really effective. And I think that they're able to make some really good use of the political world of the Purge, the fake Washington D.C. that they shoot in. That's actually Rhode Island, and I think they make good use of Frank Grillo. They make good use of pretty much all of the characters and all of the actors that are in the movie. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a large popcorn to join Lindsey. And yeah, it's great. And I feel like there's not a super high barrier to entry with any of these Purge movies, because once you hear the opening crawl that I made fun of in my plot review, that you're going to basically get like, oh, okay, so that's what this is. So let's see what this is. Let's see how this plays out. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a large popcorn, and I think that I can say pretty solidly that we all had a really good time watching it, and I think we had a really good time with the podcast. So that leads us to our plugs segment. So Patrick, why don't you tell the folks about how they can follow you and keep up with your many works?
If you're looking for just me, it's Alleyway Crew with a K, on I think every social. And if you're looking for Chainsaws and Claws, we have it's Chainsaws, Claws, basically everywhere. We have everything. It's even Threads, which nobody uses. Like we're basically everywhere. And like as far as the podcast goes, I mean, any place you're looking for podcasts, like we're based out of Spotify, but we're on everything. So like if listening to this, like has given you the urge to listen to our show, please go with that urge. I'm all about that urge. Thank you for that urge.
So the urge to listen, not the urge to purge.
I mean, if people want to go into the murdering, let's see what happens. I don't know. We'll see.
And speaking of social media and following podcasts, you can find and follow us on social media at Filmstrip Pod, basically on all the things as well, where we share announcements about upcoming shows as well as some other fun content when Jay or I feel like bothering with it. Speaking of things we want people to bother with, don't forget to subscribe and share the show with your friends, your enemies, and the people who need to know that you're going to come purge them when the time comes. Bonus points if you leave us a positive review, as it helps other people find our podcast and it makes us feel really good about ourselves.
Can I kind of jump in real quick on that, real quick, Ron?
Sure.
We're coming up on something really fun. We are coming up on episode 400 of this fine show, which we'll release at the January 2025. And we're going to have some real fun. We're going to tell you what it is yet, folks, but we're going to have some real fun on that show. It's something that when we release it, you'll be like, how the hell did y'all not do that in 14 years, as we've talked about tonight? But it's none of the things we've mentioned tonight, oddly enough. But it's going to be a huge show because it's the whole gang, like all 8 of us on one show. So prayers accepted for the editor here who will have to put that together. No, it's really fun, and I'll double in too and let people know Chainsaws and Claws is a weekly listen for me. It's always a lot of fun. So Patrick, thanks for coming on and being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
And before Jay interrupted me with some very important plugs, I was going to add, if you leave us a negative review, we will find you and we will take you out. We've already bought our crazy masks. We're ready for this thing. but yes, please like and rate the show positively as it falls off the rails at the very last minute because we're all ridiculous at this point. Until next time on our ridiculous podcast, thank you for listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.